Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 39 of the Daily List Report. This is day 4 of Stand and Salute Extreme Ownership. As I've been doing all week, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing my co-host. So, Wessal, why don't you say hello to our agentpreneurs?
Hello again, agentpreneurs. Nice to see you again. We learned as of yesterday how to do this appropriately.
If you didn't see yesterday's show, we learned how to do a proper salute. So that was fantastic. What are we doing today? And more importantly, what did we do yesterday? So let's talk a little bit about the fundraiser.
Oh, this week has been fantastic. I feel like the energy coming from all of our agentpreneurs and supporters of the show and viewers is so much one of service this week. And that is exactly what we were hoping to inspire and incite with our viewers. And we had such an amazing lineup this week already. We learned amazing leadership, just a thought and mentality from David Deary, retired Command Master Chief in the Navy on Monday, and got to hear from your brother-in-law, did the really great words of hope for us live from Shaw Air Force Base on Monday with a flyover during. We had Mary Maloney, Navy veteran, an amazing, powerful female leader in the real estate space on Tuesday, talking to us about just attitude and how we are not all in the same boat, but we're in the same storm and how to weather that. And then yesterday, of course, we had a tremendous day of giving. And we had the Stand and Salute campaign, a 24-hour virtual campaign that supports 7 organizations that help our active duty and veteran military families. And we were very successful thanks to all of you. We had a lot of live donations during the show. And I don't have final numbers yet. We will come back on Memorial Day to present kind of how those nonprofits performed. But I believe there was some goal smashing that happened yesterday as a result of the time spent with all of our viewers. And I just want to thank everyone out there for being amazing and supporting and being of service and chiming in to support those amazing organizations that are helping our military. It was a really successful day,
wasn't it? Yeah, we just had so many great stories. We had live donations during the show, and it was just, it was tremendous. Now would be a great time for you to give our guest of the day a proper introduction.
I would be so happy to do that. You know, I really want to spend a little extra time introducing Ken today, mainly because I think it's very difficult a lot of the time for us as civilians to understand the depth of the background of those who served in the military and how intense their training experience and contribution to the United States is. So I'm going to go through this a little bit slowly because I want everyone to understand the merit of not only Ken and what he said, but all of the guests that we brought on the show this week are tremendous leaders and highly experienced. And it's really an honor for us to have these people coming on our show because they are interested in supporting you, all of our viewers. They have a message that is great, but they are extremely high level, impactful, influential leaders. We are so lucky to have stolen a little few minutes from to actually serve up to all of you because they actually want to make an impact on you too. So very, very honored that we're actually able to secure someone like Ken today. I want to make sure you understand Ken's background. So Ken Robbins is the co-founder and CEO of Millie, an organization he's going to tell you a lot about that we're very passionate about now that we've learned a lot about it. Ken's a former Army officer with 20 years of experience serving in tactical, operational, and strategic level assignments. And while he was in the Army, he was deployed to numerous theaters, including Iraq in 2008 and 2009. And after his time in Iraq, Ken was selected and appointed as one of 15 White House fellows by President Obama to work on a specific assignment that helped with the policy establishing the Veterans Employment Initiative. This is massive national policy that he was appointed by President Obama to serve and help with. Really massive accomplishment for any person. After his White House fellowship, he served as an Army fellow to the Department of State as well. And his educational background that supported in his experience to be so influential in those matters was a Bachelor of Science in American Politics in the United States Military Academy and a Master's in Public Administration from the Harvard Kennedy School. Interestingly, Ken is also married to a wonderful woman named Heidi, who happens to be a top performing real estate agent in Northern Virginia. And it's funny, as we were getting to know Ken, we talked about all the home moves that they've gone through and some of this that inspired his business now that he's going to talk to you about. They've lived in 12 homes during their 20 years of Army moves. And if you can imagine that, Ken's not only a decorated, incredible leader and founder of a company, he is a military spouse. His wife has served served with him, right? He has gone through these relocations as a consumer, all the things that our real estate agents have to deal with and manage. And he has just a wealth of experience from every angle that will serve our viewers today. And I'm so honored to bring him on. Ken, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thanks, Wessal. Thanks, Randy.
Unmute, Ken. It's the first step to success.
He's good to go. He's good
Unmute,
to go.
Can you hear
right?
it?
Yes.
I can't hear anything, Randy.
Okay. You still can't hear him, Wessal?
I hear Ken. Yeah.
Can you not hear me?
Not hearing anything from Ken.
We're gonna have to figure this out. So I can hear you fine, Ken. So We're gonna carry this, and Wessal, if at some point the audio pops in, you just let us know. So Ken, first and foremost, thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for joining the show today. I'm really excited, to have this conversation with you. Wessal is going to rejoin, so hopefully we can get her back on here in a moment. But Ken, as we go through your background, I'd love for the audience to get a chance to get to know you a little bit. So just talk a little bit about, your transition from the military into real estate, and just give our agents a sense for what your mission is and how you transitioned into this role.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great to join you guys today. I'm really excited and honored to be on the show. So my background and my transition, and Wessal kind of talked about this a little bit, which was so I was at what was the tail end of my Army career here in the Washington D.C. area, and I made the decision. We had made the decision I was going to transition out. We were going to stay here. And during that last assignment here at the Pentagon, my wife Heidi got involved in real estate and became an agent. And when we first were starting, I was very skeptical because I always believed that to be successful in real estate, you had to live somewhere for forever, right? You were kind of grew up there, you knew the area well. That's kind of the model that most people kind of think about when they think about successful real estate agents. And what I noticed with her is she just crushed it in her first year out, and 85% of her business were fellow veterans and military folks. And what I learned from it was that military folks were hungry to connect with somebody that really understood them, right? Yes. As a person and what they were going through. And it's not that they didn't want a great agent, they still wanted that, but they were most concerned with having somebody that understood them. And so as I looked at that, I started to look out across the landscape. And what I realized was there are a lot of agents out there that underplay that military background or that military experience they have, either a spouse or a veteran. And I thought it was really something they should be highlighting and they should be talking about. So we decided we wanted to go out and actually create a network, specifically of veteran and military spouse agents, and we called it Agent Hero. And that was the impetus to kind of get the business going, was let's build this nationwide network of these great agents that are around the country, and kind of market them as a cohort, as a specific skill set of really being able to help people with this kind of dicey transition that happens when you're moving in the military.
Fantastic. Wessal, you're actually back with us now. Ken, I don't know if you know Kelly Artis, but Kelly Artis says, "Hey, Ken."
Oh, that's my COO.
Oh, perfect. Kelly, thank you for joining.
Kelly is a military spouse down at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Actually, I'll give a shout out. Her husband, Andrew, is actually a special forces officer deployed to Afghanistan right now, and is almost at the end of his tour of duty and will be coming home in a few weeks. So she's holding down the fort there, but excited to get Andrew back. But Kelly runs Millie. I just do things like this, but I know better than to get involved in most of the big decisions. I let those all go to Kelly. So
that's awesome.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. Thanks for your service, Kelly, and we're hoping for a safe return of your husband. That's a really big honor, and what a special time for him to be serving, especially leading up to Memorial Day, which is why we're so happy to have Ken on today to share with our audience some of the relevant work that you guys do, so that our members can maybe be incentivized to spend their time observing our military this weekend. So I'm very happy to have you, Ken. It's such a really wonderfully fitting story, your business, how you founded it, the people that you serve that are relevant to our viewer base. We're so lucky to have you on today. You fit so nicely into the messaging that we were hoping to get across to our audience this week, related to specifically inside our industry, our own individual lives, businesses, and how this notion of extreme ownership and service that we've been harping about all week with all of these amazing guests applies. And we think that you have such a tremendous story to share. So, Randy, why don't you go through with Ken and talk about some of the themes that we want to have him highlight today?
So Ken, as we've been discussing, right, and as you know, the theme of this week is extreme ownership, and I think everybody has a slightly different definition of that, or a moment in their life where they took extreme ownership, and so would love for you to spend a few minutes sort of sharing what extreme ownership means to you, and maybe an example in your life where you exhibited that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think it's a great topic. When I think about extreme ownership, I when I reflect back on my military career, I kind of think of the bookends of my military career, right? And it started off early on as a young lieutenant and ended as a colonel working in the Pentagon. And during that time, right, the what I got to see is I got to see an entire organization from kind of the lowest level all the way up to the very highest level. And what I learned from that was, and from my own experiences, is your leadership changes along the way in the sense that as the organization gets larger, how you have to lead that organization changes. But ultimately what never changes is your ultimate responsibilities, and of the organization itself. Right, you are ultimately responsible for everything that happens in that organization, and that's not to say that you're to blame for everything. I think sometimes people equate responsibility and blame in the same kind of category, and that's not. Responsibility means you have ownership over the entire organization, and you have to be responsible for it, because the only way you're going to get people to respond and do the things that are necessary in the organization is if they believe that you truly own the organization and that you are taking responsibility for everything that happens in that. And I'll give you, like, from my early career, you guys can see I have like a whole bunch of stuff behind me. This is I've got one of my proudest things. I've got a UN flag behind me, and it's kind of ripped in two. I was on an observation post up on the Serbian-Macedonian border as a young lieutenant, and we got shut down for 3 days because we had this massive snowstorm. Couldn't get anything in and out, and me and my like dozen guys were literally stuck on this mountaintop, and then all of our generators failed, everything else was going apart, so we literally were and the temperature got down to like 25 degrees below zero.
Wow.
It was like the most harshest conditions you could be in, and all I was doing during that time is I was taking it upon myself to make sure my guys were safe. I was making sure that we could continue the mission the best we could, but the point was, that was my responsibility, right? That was what I owned, that as a leader. I had to take responsibility for everything that was going there. And that translates too into your business. I mean, you are responsible for everything in your business as well. But that doesn't mean you're not going to experience rough times or hard patches, and you got to be prepared for those. But it really is about taking that ownership. And then as I translated it out towards the end of my career, I got to watch the most senior leaders in the Army and how they were leading. When you're in massive organizations, you have no idea what's going on underneath you sometimes, right? But that doesn't make you any less responsible for those. So you still have to assert yourself and make sure that people understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. And they have to look to you and have confidence that you as a leader, are going to take control and own the entire organization.
That's so relevant, Ken, to like even on a very small level on our individual transactions that every real estate agent has to manage right now. That sense of ownership is so important. I'm sure Heidi knows this, right? Your wife who, it could be title or escrow's fault that something didn't get done. It could be that the borrower bought a washer right before closing and messed up the loan qualification. It could be that the loan officer, the underwriter was slow, but really Heidi's the one communicating with the client, right? And she needs to have an answer, a response, and support of that client, whether or not the mud is on her face, right? Like that is an attitude. That's a position that you take in the smallest of micro actions and at the height of managing a massive brokerage.
And the worst thing you can do, right, in that situation is say, well, that's not my problem.
I know.
Like the people that you're working with as an agent, right? That's why they've hired you. They
look to you.
They look to you to take care of those things. And that's really what it boils down to. There are times where you might rely on others to do certain things, but then there's times you've got to really step up yourself and take control and take responsibility of those things. Even if they don't fall on you, you're like, I'm going to make sure this problem gets fixed because that's what my client expects, right? And that's what they're paying me for. That's why they've hired me. And I can't just push it off and just hope that the other people are going to do what they want. Now, hopefully over time, right, you learn that, okay, I can trust this person to work with this person, right? Or I can trust. And so you hopefully will push your clients to people that that you can trust that will do a good job. But, that's not always the case. You're left with that, you don't always get to pick the mortgage lender they work with, right? You're going to get whatever they brought to the table. And so, you're just trying to get them to close. And if that mortgage lender is not doing their responsibility, you've got to get on the phone with them and make sure that they are hitting the wickets,
Yes.
right? So you're not missing things that are going to end up costing your client, because in the end, which is why I think it's really fascinating, right? We're at a time in the industry where we're talking about kind of taking the agents out of it, and we're going to do it without agents, and we're going to do it like it's all these micro transactions, when really it's one transaction that has a bunch of moving parts, but one person has to kind of like massage, and the only person that can do that is the agent, because that's
right.
the person that has the relationship with the home buyer. It's not these other folks, right? They're not going to turn to the title attorney or to the mortgage lender. They're going to turn back to the agent. So
and we believe that, Ken. I mean, and the data bears that out, right? People are looking for a guide to make this massive decision. My one of the questions I have for you, Ken, and I think about this a lot, is it's the same thing with like health or fitness or anything, right? Like you're out in the audience and you see someone like you come on, you look at your background, you're like, man, this guy went to West Point, went to Harvard, like is appointed by Obama, like that's crazy. Like I'm not like that. But I sort of believe that this idea of extreme ownership is really, in a sense, as simple as a mindset. And it's a mindset that you can shift right now, today, and you could say, no more excuses, I'm going to own everything around me. Like, how do you think about that?
So I'll give you, like, you just named off several things, and I'll give you examples of how those things shape me into the way I run the company today, and how I think about those things is the biggest thing is failure, right? I mean, failure is something that we are all kind of facing in every aspect of our lives, but especially in our professional aspects. Fear of failure is oftentimes what drives us to either make certain decisions or not make certain decisions. Every one of those things you just named off, whether it was going to West Point, whether it was becoming a White House fellow, I didn't get any of those things the first time I applied.
Right.
And a lot of people, when I tell people that, they say, well, why do you tell people that? Like, why are you admitting that you weren't good enough? I said, because it was the fact that I didn't get it made me go back and work that much harder. Right. So I had choices every time when I was, rejected for those things. I could have gone one way and just said, that's it, I'm done, I give up. Or I could buckle down and say, okay, what is it that I could do to change my trajectory that will give me a better chance the next time? And that's what I chose to do.
Yes.
And that's, to me, like when we're talking about ownership, that's the fundamental thing you have to always be thinking about as an owner, whether it's your own real estate business as an independent agent, or your brokerage if you're a broker, or your lending group if you're a mortgage, right? You've got to be, how do I overcome that failure in a way that does not paralyze me or keep me from moving forward? Healthy fear of failure is good, right? You don't want people making irrational decisions or dangerous decisions. You want some level of fear. That's what protects us. But can I overcome that fear in a way that drives my business forward and actually is a positive, and I use it as a positive, and say, I'm not going to sit here and just continue to accept the reality that I'm in. I'm going to use that to push me forward. So that's what I've always tried to do, is I've tried to use that and say, look, every failure I've had, I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to try apply it and move forward in a different way. And you learn from it, and then you find out that, in some ways you were probably better off. And we don't want to fail all the time, but sometimes a little failure does drive us to, become better at whatever it is we're doing.
100%, right, Ken? I mean, the tech industry was sort of the world that I come from, right, has embraced that idea a long time ago, right? It's almost a badge of our own sort of badge of pride or courage or whatever, right? And it's what you do with it, and how you transition into the next thing. And it really is about persistence, right? And belief that if you keep trying, you're going to get there. So. Right.
And it's funny you're both saying that, Ken, because, we referenced Mary Maloney, our Tuesday guest, who a Navy veteran, real estate agent, military spouse herself. Her quote to us on the show was the same message. She said, failure is a moment in time, not a tattoo. Yes. And that's her attitude, right? And I'm guessing, Ken, that is probably the attitude of all of your military spouse agents who have gone through just a whole host of issues in their lives and their own relocations and other issues. Obviously your organization is very specifically supporting this permanent change of station moment in an active duty service member's life that real estate agents have to deal with in their lives. And there are all kinds of failures happening in that moment in time right now as a result of COVID-19, and you don't have a choice in it. You have no control over these things popping up, and those failures cause you personal failures that wouldn't have otherwise been your fault. So, not dealing with it in the traditional sense that someone who's underprepared would, which would be to point the finger, blame, find a reason that, there's a reason I can't make this work right now because of someone else or some externality. I feel like understanding that notion that failure is expected and required, in fact, to become the best version of yourself or to be successful in any endeavor that you undertake is a mentality you have to start your day with, right?
Yeah. And I would add the other caveat I'd add to that too is I think too often we look at failure and we look at it in the wrong, we draw the wrong lessons out of it, right? We look at failure and we say, I look at it and I say, well, okay, this didn't work, so therefore I should have done this, right? I should have made a different decision. Well, that's not necessarily the case. I used to really, when I was a battalion commander in the Army, I would always emphasize to my younger lieutenants that so much of decision making and leadership, right, is about taking the information you have at hand and making the best decision you can, and not judging whether the decision was the correct one based on the outcome. Because oftentimes you can't control the outcome. We always say in the military, the enemy gets a vote. The enemy gets a say. They are going to have their influence on what's going to happen. And that's how you have to think about it. Like, did I use the information available to make the best decision I could at the time? Even if the outcome didn't turn out the way I had hoped or had planned it, that doesn't mean it was a bad decision. It just means the outcome didn't go your way. And so it's always important to draw the right lessons and not just simply say, well, this I failed or this didn't work, therefore I made a bad decision. No, you maybe made a right decision and the circumstances just didn't lend themselves to leading it to a success. Or maybe I did make a calculation about something incorrectly, or I thought about something in the wrong way, and I wouldn't do that again the next time. So drawing the correct lessons, I think, are so important. And too many people miss that. They judge it purely on the outcome, right? I mean, I love the golf, right? And it's like you got to let the shot go. Once you hit the ball, you got to let it go, right? You've done everything you can. And then you say, what could I have done differently to prepare for that moment? But once the moment happens, you got to let it go, learn from it.
Ken, I think you're really getting into Randy's heart right now.
Yeah, you are. You said golf, yeah. So
Randy, golf failure. They all go
whoa. Let's ease up on the failure. Ken, have you read? I
got all kinds of talks I'm showing up today. See, like, this is the first time I broke 80 as a golfer, right? I keep it here as a reminder to myself that you can achieve things, right? Like, I never thought I could break 80 ever as a golfer. And then I did it one day, and I always keep this on my desk because I want to remind myself what it felt like that day, what was happening that day that was working. And I remember it was all about, I wasn't thinking about the score. I was focused on other things. The score just happened. And when I started thinking about the score is when I almost blew it, right? Because I was focused on the wrong things. You got to focus on the process. You got to focus on the decisions you can make. You can't focus on outcome. When you start focusing on the outcome, you lose it mentally. And that's where you run into problems, right?
Have you read Annie Duke's book, Thinking in Bets?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I was going to say so let's put this in the comments, right? So for those of you out there who haven't read this, Annie Duke wrote a book called Thinking in Bets, and it's everything that Ken is talking about right now. It's tremendous, which is you cannot measure the success of something by the outcome. You have to look at the bets that you made and what went into it, because there are so many factors that can influence the outcome. And we often think, in many cases, in terms of the outcome and not the process that led up to it. So that was a great reminder. And I love that you keep that. Ken, actually, this is a sort of a sideball question here, right? Which is, a lot of people that I know that are really successful, they memorialize things like that, right? Like you've sort of memorialized that moment, the first time you broke 80, and it reminds you of a place or a time or a mindset that you were in. And I think a lot of people don't take the time to do that. So do you mind elaborating on that for just a moment? Because I think it's such an important thing.
So my entire room, so to give you a caveat, like, my wife lets me have this little tiny room in the basement. And what she said is, you can hang anything you want in that room, but that's it. You don't get to put anywhere else in the house. So I literally have this room filled, and it's full of just things like that. There are things that remind me of different points in time in my military career, whether it's that flag, whether it's, other things in here that remind me of certain things. And I can draw lessons from that, right? Or how I felt at that time, or what was it about the circumstances I were in that either went well or maybe didn't go well. And it's not everything in here is necessarily a happy memory either. I'll show you one later. There's sad memories in here too, but they're there to remind you of, right? I try to be in the moment as much as I can. I try to remind myself what it's like to be in the moment, and in those circumstances when I was in that moment, right? And I was only focused on what was going on at that time. I wasn't worried about all these other things that could have influenced it. I was concentrating on what I needed to do at that moment. Because we lose that sometimes. We're always thinking ahead. We're always thinking of the next week and the day and the months ahead. And we lose focus on what we should be focusing on at the moment. And I think to translate that, for real estate agents especially, right? They're always thinking of, hey, where's my next client coming from? I need another 10 clients. It's like, no, concentrate on that client you're with right at that moment. Do everything you can for that person. And that's going to the other stuff's going to sort of take care of itself, yes. Right? Because the service you're giving them at that moment, they're going to carry that to other folks, and they're going to tell them about you. And you don't want to lose that. You don't want to be looking ahead to the next person. You want to stay focused on, that person you're working with today and giving them the best that you can give them for that day.
Back to our first speaker on Monday morning when we opened the week, our words of hope from your brother-in-law, Randy. He left us with a message of just control your attitude, right? Like being positive. It reminded me of that because right now what you're saying is just absolute words of positivity. You have a mentality of gratitude and positivity when you're speaking. I think that's fundamental to everything. And one of the things we discussed, Ken, before you came on in prep for today was that you have no choice but to be positive. If you're active duty and you get orders put on you, the military decides where you move for your clientele, right? But the service member decides whether it'll be a good experience or not, whether they view it as a bummer or a failure or a win. That's all mentality, right? There's so many externalities outside of our control. The people that you serve and the clientele that the real estate agents you work with serve are people who have no choice. They were told, they were given orders to uproot their entire family, their entire lives, and move across country to a place they've ever been to within 6 months. Go. Don't have any support or information for you, but you got to handle it. I mean, that's just one of the many afflictions put on to a military family as a result of the service that they signed up for, the selflessness, the sacrifice, right? If you don't have a positive attitude and you don't, view your failures as a way to become a winner, then how do you live a life that's fulfilling, right? And the funny thing is, the whole reason we came up with this week was that we were noticing a major delta in our conversations with our military network and friends about how happy and thriving and well they were doing during the COVID-19 crisis in comparison to a lot of our civilian friends and clients, right? And I was like, why? How can we bridge the gap? They're so prepared, the military, right, for this situation. So please comment on that because you deal with people who have no control over their own destiny at all in many circumstances, yet they seem to be thriving and successful.
Well, Wessal, you're speaking literally our language at Millie because we focus on positivity. So when we started this company, one of the frustrations we had was, and look, we are all on social media, but what we find is social media tends to be dominated by so many of those that have negative opinions of things, right, or have a negative.
So true.
And they tend to carry they carry kind of the day with their voice. And when you would learn about a new duty station, you go to social media, you'd just be inundated with all these negative folks. But the reality was that's not the way most people experience that duty station. But they just weren't on social media kind of crowing about it, which was what led us to want to create Millie in the way that we did. Is we wanted to focus on that positivity. I mean, we moved 12 times in 20 years. We loved everywhere we lived. And it wasn't because we were always excited or because that was where I wanted to go. But we took it as like, this is an adventure. This is a new place. We're going to learn. We're going to see new things. And that was kind of the mentality we took. And what we found in our time running this company is that's the way most military people, approach it. They just want to get the information they need to make the best decisions, but they want to have a positive experience. They're going to have a positive experience. They just need that information. And there's so much in military life you can't control. Like I can't control whether your loved one is going to be sent overseas on a dangerous assignment, right? That's the reality of military service. All we want to do is we said, if we could just make it a little less stressful, a little less anxiety on that move, we can get you there and get you comfortable quick. You're going to thrive because you're going to get into your new environment. You're going to figure that out. So I think when COVID happened, actually, ironically, like this is the way a lot of military families, are kind of dealing with their life anyway. So isolation, unfortunately, is part of that. And so they kind of took it a little bit stride, like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of used to this in some ways, right? I'm used to having my service member gone. I'm used to kind of being home alone,
right?
Taking care of the kids. Like, so it's not new. So I'm not surprised, like you're seeing that when you're interacting with other military families, that they're kind of, thriving in this environment because it's a challenge, but they're used to it, right? Like we always joke, we're going to live somewhere for 3 years. I got to meet my best friend in the first 6 months in there. We don't have 15.
That's a good way to put it.
I got to go meet Right. And it's funny, when you move into a civilian neighborhood as a military family, a lot of times you'll go introduce yourself to the neighbors and they're kind of looking at you like, what do you like? People, we don't do that around here. People, well, hey, I'm going to be your next door neighbor for the next 3 years. So I want to know who you are because, we don't have a lot of time to get to know each other. We want to know who you are. We want to that's kind of their mindset is like they want to experience it and have the best experience they can. For them and their families, and they want to thrive and enjoy it. And then they're going to be on to the next place, and they're going to have to do it all over again. So
absolutely,
it's exemplary attitude. That's exemplary attitude.
It really is. Ken, I want to make sure that you get a chance. I'm going to pull up the Millie website here next to you, and I just want to make sure that the audience has a real sense for what you're doing at Millie and sort of the mission and heart that you have for the service.
So Thanks. I talked earlier about how we started our agent network. Well, as we were going through that process, a lot of your viewers will probably be familiar with a guy named Tom Ferry, who's a real estate #1 real estate coach. There are probably several of them have him as their real estate coach. We were brainstorming with Tom, and we said, "Look, Tom, we want to make this bigger. We want to go beyond just agents." And we started to talk through the problem set, and we through that brainstorming session, and then we worked with a company called 1000 Watt. You may have heard of. Really, and we came up with what became our brand, which is Millie. And really what it was is we wanted to provide the information to military families so they could make the best decision they could prior to their move. And before this, it was always that anecdotal. We said, well, let's put it all in one place. So we went out and actually hired over 500 military spouses to help put this information together. And it's all the things you'd want to know about living in a community around a military installation from the perspective of a military spouse that lives there. And so our team gathered all that information, put it together on the site. And then what we do is we make that available for any military family to peruse and look at and learn for free. And then we just say, hey, do you need help? And we can help you in other areas. So we can connect you with that agent, that military veteran or that military spouse who can help you buy a home. We've also created what we love is our Millie Scout program, we have over 100 military spouses around the country that you can hire for odd jobs related to moving. And we're super excited. Lowe's just partnered with us in the last couple of weeks to help sponsor those jobs for the next few.
Wow.
Because it's really cool because the military moving process is going to be truncated because of COVID this year. So families are not able to take house hunting trips in advance. And so our scouts kind of help you find rentals. They can help you go look at it from afar. They can give you that FaceTime kind of video tour. They do a lot of just cool things. And so that was a great service we've been able to offer. And then the one thing that we're really excited about now is, one of the questions we kept getting is we get a lot of agents that would say, hey, I'm not a military veteran. I'm not a military spouse, but I really want to help military families. And we have a really strong kind of social impact belief at our company that, look, we want everybody out there that wants to help military families to be able to help them. So we went out and created a service called Agent Intel, where we basically took our content and we put it together in a way that allows agents to use it in their own marketing. So if you're an agent in San Diego and you work with military families, we built these great PDF guides for you. You can put your picture on it, your information. You can send that out to your clients, and you can give them real, tangible information to help them with their decision. Because our theory is, if we can help that agent, help that family's going to make a better decision, right? Buy a house that is within their price range, experience their duty station that much better. I mean, we want to help agents be able to do that. So those are kind of the big services that we do. But it's all about kind of the ecosystem of the community and trying to serve that to the best way we can.
That's fantastic. That's great. And so gomillie.com is the website. We also have it in the comments. I got to put this up here, Ken. You'll get a kick out of this. I think someone's from your office when you were talking about, meeting your best friend right when you moved, says, quote, "Hi, it's great to meet you. Can you be my emergency contact?"
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. So right? We all have our kids at school. You have to have a contact. Who do you put on there? You don't know anybody, right?
Yep.
So you're like, oh, you're my next door neighbor. Yeah, could you be my emergency? I mean, that's literally every military family's had that conversation at some time before, where they, tried to find that person to do that.
And I'm sure real estate agents in all these local markets would love to be that emergency contact for a lot of these active duty service members.
Yeah.
And on that note, Ken, real quick, I just want to bring a point up here because you have a quality control system in that the people that are educating the service members, the real estate agents that you are leveraging in your network happen to be military spouses or veterans themselves, right? So they have a leg up, obviously, in the thorough understanding of the
Right.
lives of the clients they're serving and the lingo and all the stuff that us as civilians don't thoroughly understand, right? And so I know that you're also passionate about this, as all of our other guests this week are, which is this notion that to be truly of service to this particular very special clientele, right? Our patriots, the people we need to be very focused on serving, you have to honor them by learning first how to serve them, right? Like that is very important. I would like you to touch on that message to our agent audience because everyone else has. Mary Maloney, very passionate about making sure if you are going to serve an active duty service member or a veteran, that you take special care in that process. Can you give us some tips on that?
We put out a lot of material on our site, especially on the Agent Intel site, helping educate agents just on that, right? And we've also partnered with NAR. We've helped rewrite the MRP certification, which many of them may have, to really talk about like what is it like, almost like the anatomy of a military client. And we do several things. One is understanding their timeline. They're on very different timelines than a lot of your traditional buyers, right? If I live in a town and I'm buying a house, I've got all the time in the world, right? Because until I find my perfect house and I'm going to stay where I'm at. That's not the case with military buyers. It's not uncommon. So when you get a call from a military client and they say, hey, I'm coming this weekend, I expect to buy my house this weekend, that's very daunting for some agents. But that's the reality. It's like, hey, this is the only opportunity I'm going to have to take a trip out here before I move here. I need to buy it now. So we talk a lot about those kind of realities to prepare agents to understand that this is not unusual, or they might even want to buy the house, kind of virtually. Like that's not an uncommon thing either, because they're just their timelines are so truncated. So that's an important part of it. And obviously, there's another aspect of it, which is understanding the VA loan process, which is what most military families use to buy their homes. There's a lot of there's lots of myths and misconceptions out there about that. We spend a lot of time trying to educate agents on that process so they can get smart. Because what we've found, unfortunately, is there's just a lot of agents that try to talk military folks out of using a VA loan because they've been led to believe it's an inferior product because somehow if you're not putting money down that you're not as qualified to buy. No,
it's harder, or that the appraisal is or you're gonna have to repair too much stuff, and it's all myth, right? We have to bust those myths, right?
Yeah, and so we always, and so a lot of the material, and so that's a lot, and then learning the lingo. You might have mentioned it, like we even define the terms you're going to hear them throwing around. Our favorite is, a lot of times an agent will ask a client, well, why are you moving from Alaska to Florida? And like a military client, if an agent asks them that, they're almost ready to hang the phone up because they're like, if I have to explain to you why the military is moving from point A to point B, I don't know if you're going to understand what I'm going through. So like really just getting them used to that kind of terminology and that mindset.
Great point.
So that they can it's a psychological thing. So you're interacting with them in a way that puts them at ease and makes them comfortable that you know what they're going through and that you're prepared to serve, which I think most agents are, right? Most agents that are great agents, right? They can work with any client they've got. It doesn't matter what their circumstances are, right? They're great agents because they really understand how to work with people. Yes. It's just a matter of I got to understand the person I'm working with, and if I can understand them, I can serve them well.
Absolutely,
that's tremendous. Randy, sorry, I have so many questions for Ken. I know we're going long here, but he's such a wealth of knowledge here. I have one more question for you that I want to just kind of talk through. And this is something I'm personally passionate about. We brought on some amazing female leaders this week, veterans themselves. And we have a ton of amazing female real estate agents listening right now to this show. As you know, in real estate, a lot of the agents out there are women. And I think that your company's values and company's beliefs are very respectful of this notion. Can you talk on that a little bit? It's really important for our viewers to understand.
Yeah, it's hugely important to us. So 93% of military spouses are women. So first of all, shout out to all our male military spouses out there. They're out there. They're more rare, but they are.
They are.
Like the military is predominantly a male organization. And so like most of the spouses are female. It's just the reality of it. And so when we built Millie, we built it with that person in mind. We built it with a military spouse in mind. Why? Because military spouses are kind of the head of households. They make a lot of the decisions as it relates to the housing and the needs of the family. Oftentimes when my wife Heidi and I moved, I turned to her and said, "Where do you want to live?" It's not that it didn't matter to me. It was just I was oftentimes focused on the unit I was going to. I might have to deploy as soon as I got there, and so it was left to her to figure that piece of it out. And so we wanted to create something that was really kind of built for that military spouse. And so for me as a leader, right, I would be, it would be ridiculous if, like, I always say I will talk about military spouses all day until they're in the room to hear what I have to say. Because I'm not a military spouse, so I don't pretend to speak like one. So this is why, like, so much of the time, Kelly is the forward face. I mean, I always say to folks, I started the company, but the heart of our company is Kelly, because Kelly is the military. She really represents what our company stands for. And so much of the folks that work with us, our content team, Jess Birch, Jennifer Kirkpatrick, our AI agent intel admin, they're all military spouses, and they get, like, they have an intuitive understanding of this. And I push them out front because I really want them to be the face of what we do, because they understand our clients better than anybody else. And it's amazing when you have an organization where you empower. And look, I'm married, and I have two very strong, powerful daughters who I've raised hopefully to be great young women, and I think they are. I've learned early on, like, I am a firm believer in empowering women, and I think it's something we don't do enough in our society. And so, I mean, I had no choice. I was going to empower women in this house, whether I wanted to or not. And so I learned early on.
Go, Heidi!
I bring that into my company, and it is a really important, like, aspect of our business is, really be kind of forward facing with our female leaders, because they really are what drives kind of the soul and the heart of the company.
We appreciate that. And our real estate agents, who are predominantly women in the industry, appreciate that. And the decision makers and the clientele that they work with are also predominantly women, as you mentioned, right? So I think that's really respectful. And it's such a great example of how you're leading and how your organization represents itself. Just very, very thankful for that. And it's also authentic, right? And that's another point we've been touching on this week for our real estate agents out there. The notion of being authentic, attracting like minds, and working with those who really align in your values and thinking is the best way to build business, because you don't want to be all things to everyone, and you don't really need to work with everyone. You just need to work with those who really support you, and vice versa.
Right. I mean, if you haven't fired a client in a while, you should do it, right?
Yes.
Like,
that's Tom Ferry's message all the time. You hear him get on his soapbox about it all the time, right?
And my wife is I love her, and she sometimes will, I see her, like, she struggles sometimes with certain clients. Certain clients are just difficult to work with, and I always say, when was the last time you fired a client? Like, there's nothing. Like, and too many agents think, oh well, I can't. That's like a transaction I've lost. It's like, yeah, but you don't need it, right? If you're successful in who you are and building your brand and you're authentic, right? You want to work with the folks you want to work with. You don't have to work with everybody. There's no, let them go somewhere else. Not every agent and client were meant to work together. So don't think of it as like a loss. Think of it as a gain. Like, I'm going to have more time for my other clients that I really want to be working with.
Absolutely.
So sticking to who you are, I think, in the real estate industry especially, that's too many agents don't do that. They try to be everything to everybody, and they're nothing to everyone.
I think that's really important to note too, for those who are not military spouses, veterans, or who are not accustomed to working with military clients who might be interested in doing that. I think all of us are. I think everyone in the industry would love serving those who've served us, right? And helping them own a piece of the country they defend. I would urge everyone out there, and Ken, you can mirror this with me, with our audience, to not be intimidated by working with the military clients.
No.
Go pursue them, but be educated first, and do your duty by honoring them, to be educated about what you're sharing with them, because they do have a different circumstance that, as an agent, you must be prepared to represent correctly. To the client.
I'll give everybody one easy tip, right? 20% of the homes bought every year in the U.S. are bought by military and veterans, right? It's 1/5 of the real estate market. A lot of people don't know that. Which means that there's likelihood that you are working with a client that you don't even know is a veteran. And the reason you don't know is because, one, a lot of veterans don't talk about their service, but two, they don't even know. Over half of veterans don't even know about their VA loan entitlement. So you might be working with a client who's a veteran that you don't know, doesn't know about the VA loan. So I always tell agents, one of the first things you should ask any client you work with is, are you a veteran? Just ask them straight up, right? If they're not, great. If they are, say, do you know about the VA loan? You will be shocked at how many don't. Now you have an opportunity to have a conversation with them and educate them on their benefit, which you've just done a great service to them, regardless of whether you end up selling them a home. But it's great for you as an agent, because now you have, you're serving them in a way that's going to meet their needs. And that's what I always tell folks, like, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to kind of put yourself out there, because a lot of us don't talk about it. We might not lead with it. We might not even mention it. And we
That's
might
right.
know that there's anything that it doesn't mean anything because it doesn't help us buy a home when it could help us in a huge way, right?
Absolutely. Ken, no, that's really great advice. Ken, as we wrap up the show today, first of all, thank you for your service, thank you for your time and your leadership. This has been tremendous. I feel like, Wessal, to your point, we could just keep talking for a couple hours, and
I
maybe we'll
know.
get a chance to have you back on. But Ken, I
I'd
wanted to
love
give you an
to
opportunity.
anytime.
Yeah, wanted to give you an opportunity to sort of, share any parting words with the agents. You've said a lot of amazing things, and so what do you want to leave our agents with today?
Yeah, I think we're coming up on Memorial Day on Monday, and it's always a interesting. There's three big. There's when we talk about the military, there's kind of three major days. There's Armed Forces Day, which was just a short time ago, which is honoring those who are kind of serving right now. There's Veterans Day in November, which is really honoring those that serve that are still with us. And of course, Memorial Day is the most sacred of them all. It's the day we remember those that sacrificed and gave their lives for their country. And so I would just tell you, we're not going to be able to gather in the way we normally do on these holiday weekends. And so I would just say, remember this weekend, take one opportunity just to try to remember that there are folks out there that did pay the ultimate sacrifice. Behind me, I have a small photo I'll share. This is so I keep this. This is so Lieutenant Tom Brown, who was one of my lieutenants in Iraq, was killed September 23rd, 2008. This is a picture of actually his intern at Arlington National Cemetery. We were still deployed when that funeral happened, so none of us could be there. But I go visit him once in a while in Arlington as a reminder that there are folks out there that gave that ultimate sacrifice. And so the best way you can honor his memory and all those that have served is kind of what we've been talking about today. Is like take an opportunity to kind of help the veteran and military clients that you're going to have coming forward. And you say, well, that doesn't sound like a really big sacrifice or a really big ask, but if you can help them, even in a little way, make a better decision. And you know what? That decision could be like not buying a house because it's not in their financial interest to do so.
Yes.
You've served them well because you've set them up for their future life in a way that maybe other agents wouldn't have done. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head as you go forward and you're talking to your clients. How can I help them? And helping them may not even be what's best for me today, but it could be what's best for them in the long run. And so I just tell folks, keep that in mind and think about that as you go forward through the rest of the summer and you're selling your homes, and talk to your clients and find out who's out there and how you can help them, because there's lots of them and they need your help, they need your expertise, when they're trying to make this huge decision.
Absolutely.
Great words of wisdom
Great
from
words, Ken.
a great leader and all around stand-up human being. We are so honored to have had the time with you today. Thank you so much for investing in us and all of our listeners today. This is the kind of like studio gold we wish for, right? This is legitimate support and help. And we're just big fans of your mission and really large support of your organization. And if there's anything we can do at ListReports to continue to support you and the spread of the message and the support to the military spouses you provide and all of our service members and their families, we'd be here for you. So please keep that in mind.
I'm already thinking of ideas, Wessal, so we'll definitely talk soon. Ken, thank you again for being on the show today and for your service. This was tremendous advice.
This has been great. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
It looks like we cut out a little bit there at the end, but thank you, Ken, for everything. So, Wessal, and I lost Wessal. So I get to wrap up the show. That was amazing. We've got a lot of links posted in the comments. We'll get these in the YouTube video as well, so you can learn about Millie and the mission that Ken and his team have, which is tremendous. And I love leaving this with this idea of service, right? That's been a big theme of this week, is service, selfless service, and doing the right thing, and taking time this weekend to remember those who've given the ultimate sacrifice for this country and for the freedoms that we have. So last reminder is that tomorrow, again, 9 a.m., we are live here on Facebook, and we have Andrew Paul and Jocko Willink coming on the show to wrap up this week of extreme ownership and celebrate everyone in the military, and in particular those who have given their lives. And so, Wessal, I actually see you back on. We'll give you a chance to say, okay,
he's probably out.
I lost you guys, but we just wrapped up the show, but you're still here, actually. We're actually still live, so we'll give you a chance to say a proper goodbye. I don't know what happened, but I lost both of you temporarily.
Okay.
Well, Ken, now I just have you. So you get a chance to sign off and say goodbye and close out the show for today. You've given some great words, but why don't you say fond farewell to the agentpreneurs of List Reports? All right, fantastic. So, all right, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. Sorry for the technical difficulties at the end, and thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Be safe and be healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow.